Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a really fascinating idea that connects a Buddhist deity of infinite compassion with Jesus. It asks this incredibly powerful question about what divinity really looks like when it shows up in the world. So let's get right into it.
So let's just start with this huge question, because it's really at the core of everything we're talking about today. If help from the divine were to show up right now for you, what would it look like? Would it be some single, majestic, unchanging form? Or could it be something more fluid, more responsive, something that actually meets us right where we are, in our own mess?
To start exploring that, our journey begins with the Buddhist figure Guanyin, a being who is, literally defined by transformation. And to really get the big idea here, we first need to understand her, or, as you'll see, him.
Okay, so the name Guanyin literally means the one who perceives the world's sounds. But we're not talking about just passive hearing, you know? This is an active, deep, compassionate listening, specifically for the cries of anyone who's suffering, and it comes with a promise to respond. And what kind of being is Guanyin? A Bodhisattva. Now, in Mahayana Buddhism, this is somebody who has already achieved enlightenment. They've done the work, they're ready to check out, but then they make this incredible choice. Instead of entering final nirvana, they decide to stay right here in the messy world out of pure compassion to help every other living thing find their own way. That's some next-level empathy.
So what's with this number, 33? According to the scriptures, that is how many different forms Guanyin can take to help someone who's in need. It's a number that's really meant to symbolize an almost limitless, boundless capacity for transformation.
And these forms, they are all over the map. They cross every single boundary you can think of. Royalty, commoners, men, women, kids. Guanyin can even show up for religious scholars, for devout believers, and for people who don't believe at all. The whole point is that the form is not what matters. What matters is that divinity shows up in whatever form is needed by the person who is suffering.
This amazing ability actually has a name. It's called inclusivity. It means responsive manifestation. It's this idea that divinity isn't some fixed, static thing up in the sky. It's a dynamic response that becomes whatever it needs to be to connect, to understand, and to help. That word inclusivity, try to remember that one, because it's the key to everything that comes next. Okay, hold that thought about Guanyin. We're going to switch gears for a second and connect this ancient Buddhist concept to a pretty modern Christian movement called queer theology. And it is super important that we're all on the same page about what the word queer means in this specific theological context. So this isn't just about LGBTQ identity, not at all. In this school of thought, queer is used to argue that all of our fixed identities, our gender, our social status, even our religious labels, are basically constructs. The word queer here describes anything at all that disrupts or crosses or challenges the neat little boxes and binaries we try to put the world into.
And this is where things get really provocative. From this perspective, queer theology makes the claim that Jesus himself can be seen as a queer figure. And again, let me be clear, not in terms of his sexuality, but as a radical boundary crosser.
I mean, just think about it for a second. His entire life was spent violating the rigid social and religious rules of his time. He was both divine and human, a total paradox. He blurred the lines between the sacred and the profane by eating with tax collectors and sinners. He moved seamlessly between the spiritual world and the physical, fleshy world. And he totally blew up the categories of who was an insider and who was an outsider. And this all connects directly to that core Christian concept of the incarnation. From this theological view, the incarnation is absolutely central. It's not about some distant, static God. It's about a divinity that chooses to become fully, completely present in the flesh, right here in the messy, complicated, sometimes painful reality of human life. It's dynamic, not static. Okay, so on one hand, we have this Bodhisattva with 33 faces. On the other, we have this boundary-crossing Jesus. How in the world did these two ideas come together? Well, this is where we meet this incredible blended figure of Guanyin Jesus. And the connection becomes so obvious when you look at Guanyin's own history. Get this. Guanyin was originally seen as a male figure in India. But when Buddhism spread to China, Guanyin transformed and became a female deity. Why? To better embody and express compassion within that specific culture. It's a literal queering of identity, a crossing of gender boundaries, all for the sake of connection. And right here, this is where it all just clicks into place. On one side, you've got Guanyin's Shin, those infinite manifestations born out of this universal compassion, or Jabi. On the other side, you've got the queer Jesus, whose Yukwa, or incarnation in the flesh, is an expression of radical love. You see how they mirror each other? Both of them are defined by their power to cross any and every boundary just to reach people who are hurting.
So really, in the end, both Guanyin and this view of Jesus are seen as mediators. They don't fit neatly into the divine box or the human box. They operate in that fluid, queer space right in between, refusing to be contained by any category, all for the sake of compassion.
Okay, I know this can all sound a little abstract, so let's bring it right down to earth with a classic story from Leo Tolstoy. It's a beautiful little parable that shows this exact theology in action, not as some high-minded idea, but as a real lived experience. The story's about a shoemaker, Martin. He's told in a dream that Jesus himself is going to visit him the very next day. So he waits, and he watches. But the only people who show up are a bunch of strangers in need. An old man who's cold, a poor mother and her baby, a hungry little boy. And he helps every single one of them. That night, as he's sitting there, he hears a voice. And he realizes that Jesus did come. He came disguised in the face of every single person he had shown love to. And of course, this story is just bringing to life that famous biblical verse that Martin reads later that night. The divine presence didn't show up as a king or as a powerful figure. It was incarnated in the hungry, the cold, the vulnerable. It was, you could say, a perfect act of Yungsin, divinity appearing in precisely the body that was needed in that moment. And this leaves us with one last, really challenging question. If divinity isn't a static image, but a dynamic, boundless act of love, if Guanyin appears as a commoner and Jesus appears as a hungry child, where might that same radical compassion be showing up in our world right now? The challenge this theology leaves us with, then, is to look again, not for a fixed God in the sky, but for a transformative love that absolutely refuses to be contained.